When you think of a lawsuit, it's usually pretty simple, right? One person sues another. But what happens when the person getting sued isn't the only one to blame? So today, we're going to dive into how legal systems untangle these really complex webs of liability to find what's truly fair. So picture this. You get sued for something, and you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, this wasn't my fault. It's a super tricky spot to be in, but believe it or not, legal systems all over the world have a plan for exactly this situation. Yeah, legal disputes are almost never a simple straight line. They're more like this tangled web of relationships and responsibilities, and to get a truly fair outcome, you often have to pull other people into the mix. All right, let's use a classic example to make this super clear. Imagine a general contractor gets sued because a new roof they oversaw is leaking. But here's the thing, they didn't actually build the roof themselves, they hired a roofing subcontractor to do the job. So the contractor's thinking, hey, if I'm on the hook for this, it's really their fault. So what do they do next? And this is exactly where the legal system steps in with a special tool designed specifically to pull that responsible third party right into the lawsuit. We're going to look at the main way this is done in both the US and Malaysian systems, and you'll see how their different approaches actually reveal two totally different legal philosophies. It's pretty fascinating. Okay, so this whole idea is built on a legal principle called derivative liability. Now, this is super important. The contractor isn't saying, hey, sue them instead of me. No, what they're saying is, look, if the court decides I'm liable to the owner, it's only because of the shoddy work you did, so you have to pay me back for whatever I have to pay the owner. That distinction, it changes everything. So in the US federal system, this tool is called a Rule 14, or impleader. Over in Malaysia, it's Order 16, a third-party notice. You can see they've got different names, but their job is exactly the same. Bring that roofing subcontractor into the lawsuit and get everyone in the same room. But right away, we hit our first big difference, and it's all about timing. Check this out. In the US, the defendant has to file their official defense first, and then boom, a 14-day clock starts ticking for them to bring in that third party without asking the court's permission. In Malaysia, though, that window is open from the get-go, before they even file their defense. It seems like a small detail, but it points to a different way of thinking about how a case should flow. Do you set up your own defense first, or do you get all the players to the table before you even plead your case? But, of course, things can get way more complicated than just one subcontractor, right? For those situations, legal systems need a whole toolkit to manage every single potential player. Yeah, exactly. What if there are multiple people to blame? Or what if some outsider who wasn't sued at all has a real stake in the outcome and wants to join the fight? That one main tool just isn't going to be enough. So the way the US federal system handles this is by having a very specific, separate rule for pretty much every scenario. I mean, look at this list. There's a rule for when you must add someone, a rule for when you can add someone, a whole different rule for a neutral party who's just holding on to money or property, and even a rule for an outsider who wants to jump in voluntarily. It's incredibly detailed, very organized, very categorized. And wow, this next part really shows the contrast. Instead of that whole long list of specific rules, the Malaysian system basically says, let's keep it simple. It consolidates a ton of that power under one single, really powerful order. Order 15 gives the court this broad, flexible authority to manage all the parties in a case however it sees fit. It's just a fundamentally different philosophy. And that really brings us to the heart of it all. What we're looking at is a philosophical clash, a system that's all about rigid, specific rules versus one that really leans on flexible court power and the judge's own discretion. And you know what? There is no situation where this difference is clearer or has bigger consequences than when a truly critical party, someone who is absolutely essential for a fair outcome, is just missing from the lawsuit. Okay, just look at this comparison. It tells the whole story. The US rule, Rule 19, forces a court to go through this very rigid two-step analysis. And here's the kicker. If that missing person is considered indispensable and for some reason can't be joined, the entire case can just be thrown out. Done. The lawsuit is over. Now look at the Malaysian side. Order 15 is explicitly designed to do the exact opposite. Its whole purpose is to avoid dismissing the case by just focusing on getting everyone to the table so the dispute can be decided on its merits. And hey, you don't just have to take my word for it. This is a direct quote from the Malaysian Rules of Court. It says, "A cause or matter shall not be defeated by the misjoinder or non-joinder of any party." I mean, it could not be any clearer. The core idea of their system is to stop a case from failing just because of what it sees as a procedural technicality. So, what we're left with are two very different paths to justice. The approaches are not the same, but they are both trying to get to the same finish line, a fair, complete resolution for everyone involved. This table does a great job of summing it all up. You've got the US system, detailed, rule-based, all about procedural rigidity. If a key person is missing, the whole case could be in jeopardy. Then you have the Malaysian system, flexible, discretionary, focused on what you might call judicial justice. If a key person is missing, the solution is simple. Just add them and move forward. So the really important takeaway here is that neither system is necessarily better or worse. They both want fairness, they both want efficiency. They just reflect different values. One system puts its faith in a detailed, comprehensive book of rules, while the other puts its faith in the wisdom and good judgment of the person on the bench. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? Which system actually delivers a truer form of justice? Is it the one with strict, predictable rules for every situation? Or is it the one that trusts a judge's flexible power to adapt to the unique facts of every single case? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this one.